Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk 3.0. Tonight, with our guests, we shed the light on some of the most hot topics about blockchain, metaverse, Web3, virtual reality, virtual real estate, and fashion. With us now, our guest, Kevin Riedl, who is the founder of Waveact with main specialty in blockchain, smart contracts, DApps, and metaverse. Welcome, Kevin, and thank you for joining us here today with Let's Talks at 3.0.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure being on today, and yeah, really looking forward to our discussion.
Absolutely. And we're going to start it off and kick it off with um, telling you that we heard a lot about blockchain. A lot of our audience knows about the topic, but we don't know much about smart contracts. Can you tell us in simple manner what exactly is a smart contract?
Well, I like to explain it as a simple set of rules that are enforced by the blockchain. And that basically just means that you have some kind of code that someone has written, which means just like your mobile app, the code that you have on your smartphone, if your operating system, basically everything that you use today from a digital standpoint. And the difference now to the software that you use now and smart contracts is that this code on the blockchain is actually trustless. You don't need to trust some kind of central authority that can change the code at any point of time, with some kind of updates or can manipulate the outcome of things. And that's actually the power of smart contracts. You can set up rules that are enforced no matter what the original developer intended. It's you can't change it afterwards. Let's put it that way. You deploy the code once, and it stays as it is forever.
Does the smart contract depend solely on blockchain technology or it doesn't have to?
Well, from my definition, it does, right? Because the code that we have, for example, if you say user A, also if you develop a regular mobile application, a app, on your smartphone, then you can set up a rule, hey, the user needs to have at least $1 on his bank account if it's a banking app, for example, to use to do some kind of transaction or to do something. Yeah. The smart contract in combination with the blockchain enforces that on an infrastructure level. So there's no backend, so there's no central authority that can change that rule, usually, except you added a rule so that you can change it. But that's the main idea that you can't.
The second topic, which is interesting also, is DApps. So, what exactly is a DApp? Can you give us an example?
That's actually quite simple. A DApp is can be a regular web application, mobile app again, whatever, just as today. But instead of, for example, only talking with a backend, it can also talk with the blockchain or the smart contract itself. So it's just um, a different, let's say, API that you call.
And if I want to talk about the Web3, let's say, and the change that it's bringing to our world as we know it right now, how will our lives on an everyday basis be affected? The way you see it, in your opinion, like going in the future, how would our lives be affected with the Web3?
Well, that's nothing that I think anyone can answer. What I can say is I'm not a typical blockchain needs to be everywhere kind of person. I'm a use case first. I have a use case first mentality, basically, but I'm strongly convinced that from supply chains to everything where you want to have that immutability and trustless aspect, where you don't want to trust some other kind of party, which can also be for votes, for things like that, or when it comes to democratic structures, for example, for venture capitalists or organizations like that, then it can be super useful to have some kind of way to have a transparent and trustless way to vote on decisions, to do things, to decide on transactions, on things that should happen, basically. The same applies to supply chain, for example, where you can track where the goods are flowing, in a transparent way again, and it's much harder to conduct fraud, for example. That's the first big use case or big aspect I see for blockchain itself and smart contracts. And that part is already heavily being worked on for many years now and already is in production for several companies.
Sorry to interrupt, but you talk about not having a third party, Kevin, right? For
Yeah.
blockchain is the peer to peer. It's from one end to end and eliminates the third party. But from somebody who, but there is a third party regardless, right? There is a host where it has all this data. So who controls that data? Because from my side, I do one transaction, it goes from point A to point B. But who actually have access to this data? There is a third party, right? Either it's an AI or it's a system.
That's the blockchain itself. That's the thing. If you maybe let me explain for a second what a blockchain actually is, so that we are all on the same page. To keep it simple, a blockchain is, let's say, like a book, where you write down everything you do, your transactions. You send wallet A, as a wallet A, send money to wallet B, and you write that down. And now the thing is, that's how banks work today. You just write it down. Well, what they can do now is they can erase things, they can change things, they can manipulate things if they want to, and sometimes that happens, as we see with examples like Wirecard, for example. And when we think about the blockchain, then we have many independent parties spread across the world that, in best case, don't even know each other, that have an exact copy of that book. And the blockchain just keeps in sync of all of these books and has a mechanism in place so that all these parties are able to consent to a specific version all the time. So it's super difficult to manipulate any kind of transactions because there are many, many, many different parties with different interests, different intentions, different cultures and everything, and identities that actually contribute to that network. And the smart contract can utilize that.
So it's like they say power to the people. So everybody has the power, not just one person.
Exactly.
Okay.
True.
There's one point actually which is very interesting I would like to talk to you about. I saw you posting something on LinkedIn a few days back where you said you want to build a valuable product and stop building things that sound cool. And then you answered like, how? Don't start with tech, start with a use case and validate. Can you explain a little bit more about what you meant here?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for doing that research. It's really appreciated. Secondly, yeah, I'm coming from the startup world, right? It's actually quite simple. Many first-time founders just build something because they think it's cool, because they think people actually need to want that. And usually, oftentimes, what they discover throughout the way is there is no actual market for it, or people just like it but are not willing to pay for it. That's another issue. And yeah, if it actually even makes sense, from a UX user experience perspective to put everything on a blockchain, because it doesn't. Blockchain is slow and expensive, and oftentimes a centralized solution makes more sense. So blockchain sounds fancy, sounds cool, NFTs, everyone wants it, and everyone's jumping right onto it. Still now in the bear market, but that's not the way, that's not how you build a sustainable business.
The journey is long to build that sustainable business that you're talking about, basically. So it's about validation of the marketplace, validation of what service exactly you're providing, not just because it sounds cool, but it's a need that actually exists. Oh, thank you so much, Kevin. Really appreciate your time with us. And hope to meet you in person soon, hopefully when you visit Dubai.
Hey, likewise, mate. Hey, let me know when it is out. I'm happy to share it as well.